And his boss in Nagasaki confronts him and says, dude, like, where have you been? And Tsutomu was like, a bomb fell on Hiroshima and like killed 80,000 people. And his boss is like, no bomb can do that. I think you're lying. And I think you've been out like, ne'er-do-welling or whatever. No, you have to believe me. A bomb fell over Hiroshima and flattened the city. You should be thanking me for being a survivor.
Welcome to another episode of WTF History. This is the history show where we go through two vignettes loosely linked, and you get to vote on which of them you believe is the best, which one made you say WTF. I am your co-presenter, Mike Gatto, and I'm here with the lovely and talented David Quintana.
Adieu.
So today we are going through horrible instances of bad luck. And these two vignettes will amaze you with just the crazy, crazy coincidences that formed probably some of the worst luck in the history of mankind. David, do you want to go first?
Tsutomu was an engineer for Mitsubishi Heavy Machinery. He worked at their office in Nagasaki, and that's where he lived with his wife and children.
Oh, geez.
And they said, hey, Tsutomu, good guy. We've got a project. We'd like for you to pop on down to Hiroshima.
Oh, no.
Tsutomu, a team player, he was like, yeah, sounds good. I'm down. So he took the train out there and they were working on it and they were getting done. And it was time for him to go back to Nagasaki. He went out with a couple of his friends from Mitsubishi and they were on their way and he forgot something. So he's like, hey guys, I got to run back to the office. I'll be back. Got off the tram. And the next thing you know is he sees a single plane flying overhead. And then he sees two parachutes fall out of the plane. You have to remember that in 1945, the Manhattan Project was absolutely confidential. No one knew what was coming with the atomic bombs, right? Everybody was used to the normal bombing that we had done, like over Tokyo and said Dresden. And
Yeah, for viewers who are wondering about what the normal type of bomb was in the 1940s, it was a bunch of bombers, swarms and swarms. I mean, you'd hear them traveling as fast as they could and being harried by fighters the whole time. So there would be an obvious bombing rate. I mean, it's not like there would ever be, and there would be flak batteries, shooting up at them. So you would always notice a bombing rate, right? You would have time. Well, you would hope to have time to get into a cellar or something. It wouldn't just be a single airplane.
yeah, and at this time there were a lot of bomb shelters in all of the major Japanese cities because, right, they were the ones who were holding out, right, after Germany, after victory Europe, uh, the Japanese were still holding out. We're probably gonna have a couple of episodes on that also, by the way. So it's August 6th. He goes back. He's looking up and he sees two parachutes falling out of a single plane, and he's like, "Oh, okay, well, don't know what that's about." And suddenly he is blinded, right, by this light. And as he puts it, the next thing you know, he's kind of waking up, and everything is black, right? Everything is just black. And then he says everything looks like the beginning of a film, when the film is going in the old days when you had actual film. And it was like black, white, black, black, white, black, white, right? The beginning or the end of a film. He's like, everything was just going black, white, black, white, black, white. And then the sky looked like a kaleidoscope.
Jeez.
And then as everything cleared, he saw this mushroom cloud, but no one knew what a mushroom cloud was then, right? So his eardrums are burst and he's temporarily blinded, right? By this. And of course, all of these are the things that he saw as he began to gain his eyesight back. Um, and so he's burnt over the top half of his body. I think they're more like first, second degree burns, right? Not third degree burns, or there might have been some, but pretty much first, second degree burns. So he doesn't know what to do. So he crawls around and he is able to find a bomb shelter. And believe it or not, when he gets into the bomb shelter, he finds the two buddies that he had actually he was going back to
Wow.
Nagasaki with, and or going back to Hiroshima with. And so they decide, hey, let's just spend the night here in the bomb shelter. We have no idea what the hell happened because this was all new war, Mike. No one had ever experienced type
Sure.
of an explosion before. So they spent the night there, and then the next morning, Tsutomu, now we're on August 7th, right? Is like, you know what? I got to go back to work. He's like,
Jeez.
take a day for self care, up for PTSD classes. Tsutomu was a baller. So Tsutomu, he walks to the train, by the way. I do not, to me, that's might be the story that the trains were still freaking running. But he goes to the train and he talks about how he has to walk past all of these bodies in the streets. And the bodies, he says, are like lumps of charcoal, or for those that you could readily identify as a body, like all of their limbs and their facial features were just melted off. Um,
Okay.
and again, you kind of imagine this guy feels like he's in some fantasy world because no one had ever experienced this. And so he's walking along and he has to cross a river. He has to ford a river and the bridge is out. So the river is thick with corpses. So he walks across the tops of the corpses. He calls it a raft of corpses. It's like a bridge of bodies. And he walks across that. He finds the train station and he goes home. And he finds his wife, and his wife is like, "Oh, how are you? How have you been?" And he tells her what happened. And remember, for people who are watching this who are younger, like you didn't have television like we have it today. You had zero social media. You waited to the morning or the afternoon when they printed the newspaper, right? And there wasn't a lot of newspaper printing going on
Yeah,
when
and I will point out that in totalitarian regimes, you had no news. You really had no news. The state controlled what came out, and they didn't want to share this bad news of any type of setback at the front. And on top of that, you couldn't really talk with people that much because if you said anything that was perceived as defeatist in Nazi Germany or Japan, your neighbor would report you and you might get arrested. So I mean, it was people can't even conceive how little news they knew and how little these people knew.
and Japan was an empire at that time. For those who are may not be familiar with that, it was an empire. So you did have a emperor. So you're right. They controlled the media. And I don't think they wanted to be talking about this, which of course they didn't because they didn't surrender after the first atomic bomb. And so he goes see his wife, and his wife, "Oh my God, you're burned. Let me go get some medicine for you. You look horrible. Let me take care of that." So he rests. And 2 days later, on August 9th, he's like, okay, so, 7th, 8th, now we're on the 9th. And he's like, I need to go into work. I've missed a day of work. This ain't right. I got to go in. So he goes into work. His wife goes out, buys more medicine for him. And his boss in Nagasaki confronts him and says, dude, like, where have you been? And Tsutomu was like, a bomb fell on Hiroshima and like killed 80,000 people. And his boss is like, no bomb can do that. I think you're lying. And I think you've been out like, ne'er-do-welling or whatever. No, you have to believe me. A bomb fell over Hiroshima and flattened the city. You should be thanking me for being a survivor. Tsutomu says that his boss said, dude, you're an engineer. Think about it. It's impossible for a bomb to destroy a city.
Huh.
Moment, right after he says it, the second bomb falls over Nagasaki.
Oh
And thank God. Now on this one, Tsutomu was relatively unscathed when he cleared up after the blinding light and after the deafening sound. He looks around and his boss is on the floor, crying for help. Tsutomu walks over him and leaves. And he goes home. His wife, who went to go get the creams and bandages for her husband from the burns from the Hiroshima bomb, thank God she had done that because his house was pretty much in the center the of ground zero. If she had been home, she would have been killed instantly. And that's what happened. And so Tsutomu Yamaguchi was able to survive both the Nagasaki and the Hiroshima bombs. Interestingly enough, he never really talked about it. And what Japan has a register for those people who are survivors, and he only registered as a survivor of Nagasaki. he did not register as a survivor of both, though everyone knew it. Like, no one was thinking he was making this up. There were rafts of witnesses for both, right? And he had talked about both. But his reasoning was this. He said, look, if I sign up as a survivor for both, then I feel that I am dishonoring those who weren't as fortunate as I to survive. And that was,
Oh,
and he died at the age of 93 from stomach cancer. And his wife lived to a very old age too. I think she might have lived to 88 or 83, one of those, but
wow.
both lived very, very long lives. They say that, his stomach cancer and his wife's illnesses were caused by after effects of the radiation. But, they lived very, very good lives. He was a very honorable man and spent the rest of his life talking about the dangers of nuclear war.
Now, that is a crazy story. First of all, because again, you've managed to find an aspect of history that I did not know. And it's just amazing to think that somebody lived through both atomic bomb deployments that have ever been used in warfare. And also, the reason why I think your story is so important is because nuclear war is again on people's minds because of all the geopolitical concerns. I think it's very important for everybody out there, whether you're, 20 years old or 90 years old, to remind themselves about the horrors of nuclear war. I just read a book about it, very, very powerful. And I think everybody out there should understand just how harmful it can be.
Yeah, two bombs killed 120,000 people.
Yeah.
But you know what? One of them was not Mr. Yamaguchi.
Hey, if you like what you hear, like and subscribe. It really means a lot, and we would love to have you coming back every week. Thank you.